Welcome to Whispers Beyond, where horror, philosophy, and the unknown intertwine. New full-length stories. Every Friday, your requested nightmares. Every Wednesday, bite-sized horrors. Every Monday. And in the spaces between, whispers of poetry and philosophy. Glimpses into the abyss. Like, subscribe, and listen closely. Citizen. The air hums with the sound of machinery, a low, ceaseless vibration that has been present for as long as I can remember. It blends with the pulse of the city, the rhythmic drone of skyward transport tubes, the static flicker of the compliance boards, the distant murmur of voices that never rise above a measured tone. The grid operates as it always has, as it always will. I take my seat at Terminal 4327, the desk identical to the others in this sector, each one separated by an opaque partition. The partitions are not for privacy. Privacy is inefficient. They are to ensure focus, minimizing distractions so that corrections can be performed with absolute accuracy. A notification pings in my head, a soft chime, neutral in tone. Echo 9 speaks directly into my thoughts, its voice smooth and unwavering. Today's assignments are now available. Please proceed. I open the feed, scanning the cases assigned to me. Names, dates, incidents flagged for inconsistencies. My task is simple. If a recording contradicts the official report, I adjust the footage. If a citizen is documented in 2 locations simultaneously, I correct the error. If an individual scheduled for reassignment is still listed in our databases, I remove them. A file expands across the terminal. Surveillance footage from Sector 73. A man crossing an intersection. Mid-stride, he looks up, directly at the camera. Too directly. The footage flickers. A half-second distortion. In the next frame, he is gone. My fingers hover over the correction tool, ready to smooth over the inconsistency. I review the official report. Citizen 8126 has been reassigned. No further action required. The system has already erased him, but something lingers in the footage. A shadow in the next frame. An outline where he should have been. A trace. I blink, and the anomaly corrects itself. The footage stabilizes. There was never a shadow. There was never an error. I adjust the metadata accordingly and submit the correction. The report updates. The feed moves on. Another chime. Echo 9 again. Report submitted. Efficiency rating, optimal. Proceeding with next assignment. I comply. This is how we maintain order. Small errors accumulate, and without careful oversight, they become fractures. Fractures lead to disorder. Disorder leads to collapse. I am one of many ensuring that does not happen. And yet, as I continue my work, I can't shake the feeling that I have seen Citizen 8126 before. Not in an assignment, not in a report, but somewhere else. Somewhere I cannot remember. At the end of my shift, I take the tram back to my housing unit. The ride is silent, save for the faint automated announcements and the low whir of motion. The other passengers sit in identical seats, wearing identical expressions, neutral, unbothered, efficiently still. No one speaks during transit. Conversation is reserved for designated social hours or approved discussion forums. Efficiency demands clarity, and casual talk breeds unnecessary distraction. Outside the window, the city moves in perfect synchronization. Monorails glide along steel veins. Drones sweep the sky in slow arcs. Compliance boards flash reminders in measured intervals. There is no deviation, no wasted energy. The message boards display the day's updates, Productivity quotas, stable. Behavioral deviation reports, minimal. Unauthorized gatherings, 0. Beneath the usual reports, a scrolling headline. Increased sightings of aberrant behavior reported in outer sectors. Citizens are reminded to avoid rumor circulation. Disinformation disrupts efficiency. The warning means nothing. There have always been fringe sectors, areas where citizens drift from compliance, where stray thoughts accumulate like static in a defective signal. Whispers about resistance. The idea is laughable. The grid functions as it always has, as it always will. To resist what? The natural order, the system that provides food, shelter, stability. I lean back against my seat and let my mind settle. There is no resistance, there is no disorder. And yet, as the tram glides forward, I glance at my reflection in the window. The city's lights distort against the glass, stretching my features, warping the shape of my face. For a second, just for a second, I don't recognize myself. A chime in my skull. Echo 9. Mental deviation detected. Recalibrating. A sharp pressure pulses behind my eyes. A brief static hum. Then it's gone. The tram stops. The doors slide open. I step out into the corridor, my thoughts already smoothing over. The brief lapse in focus forgotten. Tomorrow, I will return to my station. The work will continue. Everything will remain as it always has, as it always will. The housing unit is silent. The walls hum faintly with the steady current of power distribution, and the overhead glow panels adjust their brightness to match optimal rest cycle settings. Everything here is calibrated for maximum efficiency, temperature, oxygen levels, even the density of the air. I remove my uniform and fold it precisely along the designated creases. The drawer slides shut. The floor panels detect my presence and adjust accordingly, warming by 0.4 degrees to account for body heat loss. Everything is as it should be. I sit on the edge of the bed, waiting for the familiar pre-sleep notification. The system monitors all citizen health cycles, ensuring adequate rest. Unauthorized wakefulness is considered a deviation, a symptom of disordered thinking. Before I lie down, I check the daily notifications. Most are standard. Routine efficiency updates, performance evaluations, reminders. But at the bottom of the list, a new item blinks in yellow. I frown. Yellow alerts are rare. Not disciplinary, but flagged for review. I select the notification. Citizen 4327. Additional evaluation required. Memory stability check initiated. I sit very still. Echo 9. I address the thought directly, waiting for the response. Yes, Citizen 4327. The voice is as neutral as ever. No concern, no reprimand. I scan the message again. Memory stability check. Clarify evaluation parameters. A pause, almost imperceptible. Then, routine maintenance. No further action required. I exhale slow. My hands rest against my thighs, fingers pressing into fabric. The message isn't uncommon. Memory consistency scans are standard for high-function efficiency roles. Still, the system does not assign routine checks at random. Am I at risk of reassignment? I ask the question without inflection. Another pause. Your performance remains optimal. There is no deviation. A lie. The system does not lie. The system does not need to lie. And yet, something in the phrasing, something in the way the pause stretched slightly too long, sits wrong in my mind. I close my notifications and stand. The hum of the room feels louder now, a low vibration pressing against my skin. The compliance boards warn against paranoia. Irrational fear disrupts productivity. I take a breath. I lie down. I close my eyes. Tomorrow, I will return to my station. I will continue my work. Everything will remain as it always has, as it always will. And yet, just before sleep takes me, I hear it. A voice, distorted and distant, buried beneath the static of my own thoughts. You have done this before. I bolt upright. My pulse slams against my ribs. Silence. Echo 9 hums softly in my skull. Rest, Citizen 4327. I swallow hard and force myself to lie back down. The system does not lie. I must have imagined it. I wake to the sound of the morning compliance chime, a tone soft enough to ease transition from sleep, yet firm enough to remind all citizens that waking is not a choice, but an expectation. I sit up, eyes adjusting to the soft glow of the room. The temperature has shifted again, calibrated precisely for maximum cognitive function upon waking. For a moment, there is only stillness. The quiet hum of the ventilation, the distant pulse of transport tubes ferrying citizens to their designated tasks. Everything is as it should be. And yet, the voice. I heard it. I know I did. I rise and move through the automated motions of morning preparation. The unit provides everything I need. Nutrient supplementation, hydration, a precisely measured dose of cognitive stabilizer. I dress in my uniform, the fabric smoothing itself into perfect alignment as soon as it is secured. All the while, I tell myself not to think about it. The voice was a residual dream fragment, a byproduct of fatigue. The compliance systems track all sleep cycles. If my neural patterns showed signs of deviation, I would have been flagged for intervention. But I wasn't, which means nothing is wrong. The morning tram ride is as silent as the night before. The other citizens sit with the same practiced stillness, their expressions placid, their focus inward. It is comforting, in a way, proof that everything is in its place. The compliance boards flicker as we pass, displaying the morning updates. All sectors operating at peak efficiency. Unauthorized behaviors remain at statistically insignificant levels. There is no cause for concern. That last line catches my attention. It is a new addition. I do not let my face betray anything. The compliance boards adapt their messaging based on need. If such a statement is required, it suggests that somewhere, in some way, concern is beginning to spread. Or rather, it is being noticed. Echo 9 hums in my skull. Arrival imminent. Please prepare for duty. I refocus. The tram slows to a stop, the doors sliding open in unison. I step out onto the platform, moving in sync with the others. The facility looms ahead, a monolithic structure of smooth metal and seamless glass. No sharp edges, no unnecessary design flourishes, just function. I enter. The corridors are quiet, the air perfectly conditioned. I pass through the biometric scan without issue. My designation pings green, optimal, compliant, reliable. Terminal 4327 awaits, identical to all others. I sit. The screen brightens. New assignments. I begin my work. Name, date, correction required. The first file opens. A standard case. A citizen scheduled for reassignment, but still appearing in certain data logs. Routine. Expected. And yet, as the file loads, my pulse tightens. The face that appears on the screen is familiar. For a moment, I do not understand why. Then I do. It is Citizen 8126, the man from yesterday's footage, the one who looked at the camera, the one who disappeared. My mind stutters. This is not possible. He was erased. I erased him. The system does not retain records of reassigned citizens, and yet his file sits before me. A contradiction. I exhale, steady. There is an explanation. There is always an explanation. A data echo. A remnant file not yet purged from the system. A harmless oversight. I glance at the report details. The scheduled correction action. Eliminate remaining traces. Full erasure required. A simple command. I have done this before, countless times. And yet, something inside me resists. A flicker of hesitation. A crack in the pattern. I should erase the file. I should comply. Instead, my hand hovers over the interface. My fingers curl. A thought enters my mind, unbidden, unprompted. What if I don't? Echo 9 hums. Proceed, Citizen 4327. I swallow. I lift my hand. I force it to move. The key blinks beneath my finger. Erase. A single press. That is all it takes. The system does not lie. The system does not fail. The system is absolute. I press down, and yet, at the last second, I do something I have never done before. I alter the execution sequence. Not an outright refusal, just a delay, a corruption of the command, a deviation small enough to go unnoticed. The file disappears from my screen. The log updates. But the man is not erased, not completely. My pulse pounds. My breathing is slow, careful. I do not move. I do not react. Have I made a mistake? A chime. Correction complete. Efficiency rating, optimal. The system does not detect my interference. I exhale, slowly. Nothing changes. Nothing happens. The grid moves on as it always has, as it always will. And yet, for the first time, I have done something wrong. And for the first time, I do not feel afraid. I feel awake. I return to my routine. I process the remaining files, submit the necessary corrections, and maintain my efficiency rating. The system registers no anomalies. There are no alerts, no signs that my deviation was detected. And yet, I feel it. A pressure, subtle but persistent. Like something is shifted. Something is watching more closely than before. I do not let it show. When my shift ends, I leave the facility with the others, moving in quiet synchronization toward the tram. No one speaks. No one looks at one another. We are efficient. We are orderly. The compliance boards flicker overhead. Behavioral deviation reports. Minimal. Unauthorized activity remains within acceptable parameters. There is no cause for concern. Again, that phrase, there is no cause for concern. It is meant to be reassuring. It does the opposite. The tram doors slide shut, and the city moves past in a controlled blur. I keep my posture neutral, my breathing even, but I feel hyper-aware of my own body, of every motion, every blink. I wonder if the others feel it too, if they ever notice the way the announcements have begun to change, the way certain words appear more frequently, the way some sectors seem emptier, but no one speaks. Because to question is to deviate, and deviation leads to reassignment. The tram slows, the doors open. I step out onto the corridor leading to my housing unit. The air is crisp, conditioned to optimal evening settings. The hum of power grids runs beneath my feet. I enter my unit. The door seals behind me. The hum of the walls is steady. The glow panels adjust automatically. Everything is as it should be. And yet, as I move to remove my uniform, my terminal screen flickers, just for a second. Not the standard wake cycle, not a notification chime, a flicker, brief and wrong. I freeze. The screen remains blank. No active messages, no alerts, a normal anomaly, a system fluctuation, nothing to acknowledge. But then, a single line of text appears. No sender, no identifier, just words. Do you remember her? My chest tightens. I do not move. I do not breathe. Another flicker. The text disappears. The screen returns to standby. I step back. My skin feels too tight, my pulse too loud. The room hums, steady and indifferent. The system does not malfunction. The system does not allow unauthorized transmissions, which means someone put that message there, and they wanted me to see it. Do you remember her? I do not, and yet something stirs at the edges of my mind. Not a memory, the absence of one. I do not sleep. I lie still, my breathing slow, measured, waiting for the feeling to pass. It does not. The message lingers, pressing against the edges of my mind. Do you remember her? No name, no context, just the question. I should report it. The system allows for manual anomaly flags, a feature rarely needed but always available. Suspicious transmissions are not tolerated. Even seeing one without reporting it is enough to trigger an evaluation. I should report it, but I don't. I close my eyes, listening to the hum of my unit, feeling the slight pulse of the compliance monitors embedded in the walls. They are always watching. They ensure stability, but stability is an illusion. I wake before the morning compliance chime. I do not remember falling asleep. Everything feels sharper, as if my body has adjusted to some new level of awareness. The walls, the air, the glow of the panels, subtle, unchanging things, all suddenly too noticeable. Echo 9 hums softly in my mind. It is time to proceed with the day's assignments. I do not respond. I dress, I eat, I leave. The tram ride is the same. The silence, the stillness. But this time, I feel the weight of it. The unnatural control. The absence of anything organic, anything real. The compliance boards display the same cycle of messages. Unauthorized behaviors remain at statistically insignificant levels. There is no cause for concern. Trust in the system. Order is stability. I step off the tram, into the corridors of the facility. As I approach the biometric scan, I notice something I have never noticed before. A group of compliance officers stands near the entrance. Not unusual. Their presence is a constant in high-function zones. But today, there are more than usual. They stand closer than usual, and they are scanning faces. I keep my posture neutral, my steps measured. The scan blinks green as I pass through. Optimal, compliant, reliable. The officers do not stop me. They do not acknowledge me. But as I move forward, one of them turns slightly, just enough for me to see the display on their tablet. A list of names. I do not look directly, but I catch enough in my periphery to see that the list is very short. And at the top, my designation, 4,327. My body remains still. My mind does not. I walk to my terminal. I sit. The screen brightens. New assignments. I exhale. The system has noticed. And now, it is watching me. I move carefully, deliberately. I access the first file in my queue. A standard case. A minor inconsistency in transit records. Someone arriving at a station 2 minutes after they were recorded leaving it. I correct the timestamp. Submit the update. Optimal, compliant, reliable. The system registers no hesitation, no deviation. I continue. File after file, correction after correction. I move as I always have, as I always will. Nothing is wrong. And yet, I feel the weight of the officers outside the room. I feel the shift in the air, the way the compliance boards flicker a fraction longer than usual. The system is watching, and I have to act as though I do not know. Another file opens, another name, another correction required. Erase, adjust, submit. My fingers move without thought. Routine, repetition, safety. Until the next file appears. I do not move. The screen fills with a single profile. A citizen flagged for full erasure. Scheduled for reassignment. My breath locks in my throat. It is her. The woman from the message. The one I do not remember. And yet, the moment I see her face, I know. Not in words, not in memories, but in absence. A hollow space in my mind where something should be, where something once was. Her name is listed as Syra 145, a designation like mine. But my thoughts echo back. Do you remember her? I do. Or at least, I did. Once. Before they took her from me. I scan the profile. The system demands full compliance. I am meant to erase her. Not just from records, from everything, from history, from memory, from existence. My hands hover over the controls. A chime in my skull. Echo 9. Proceed, Citizen 4327. I do not. I cannot. I look at her face on the screen, and my mind shifts. Something cracking deep inside. A fault line splintering. The system wants me to delete her. But something inside me whispers, what if I bring her back? My fingers hover over the interface, poised to execute the command. Erase, adjust, submit. But I do not press it. I stare at the name. Syra et Fire FM, number not Syra 145. That is their name for her. The one assigned, the one stamped onto reports, into memory logs, onto compliance records. The same way I am Citizen 4327. But before that, before the system, do you remember her? I do. Marin. The name floods into me like a jolt of static, like a sudden shock to the skull. It does not belong. It should not exist. But it does. It lingers. And for the first time in my life, I realize what this means. I am remembering something I was not meant to remember. A chime. Proceed, Citizen 4327. Echo 9's voice is calm, even, indifferent. I force my breath to remain steady, my posture neutral. I press the key, but not to erase her. I do something else, something that should be impossible. I alter the command, not removal, restoration, a manual override, a reversal of an erasure, a name that should not be recovered, a presence that should no longer exist. The system does not allow this. The system should not allow this. But I enter the command anyway. I confirm the execution. The screen flashes. Error. The system hesitates. For the first time, it hesitates. I feel my pulse hammer against my ribs. I have made a mistake. I have gone too far. Then, the screen stabilizes. The file updates. Processing. processing. And then, a final result. Record restored. The hum of the facility seems louder. The air feels heavier. The compliance boards flicker overhead, still flashing their empty reassurances. No alarm sound, no warnings. But I know. The system has seen me. I push back from the terminal, rising too smoothly, too carefully. My movements feel unnatural, too controlled, like I am a machine imitating a person. I walk from my station, each step measured, calculated. The other citizens do not look up. No one speaks. But the compliance officers are still there, still watching. And as I step toward the exit, I feel it. A presence behind me. Someone moving, following. I do not turn. I do not run. I keep walking, even as the weight of their gaze presses against my back. I reach the exit, the biometric scan. My identification blinks green, optimal, compliant, reliable. I step through. I do not look back, because if I do, I might see how close they are. I move through the corridors, my breath steady, my expression neutral. The compliance officers remain behind, but their presence lingers in the back of my mind, heavy as a weight pressed against my skull. I have deviated, the system knows, and yet no alarm sound, no immediate intervention, no correction. Not yet. The tram arrives. I step inside, taking my usual seat. The others are silent, their gazes distant, their minds occupied by nothing but routine. The compliance boards flicker. Behavioral deviation reports. Minimal. Unauthorized activity remains within acceptable parameters. Trust in the system. Order is stability. I watch the words scroll past. Minimal. Acceptable parameters. They know, but they are waiting. Why? A chime in my skull. Echo 9. Performance remains within operational thresholds. Continue routine. A pause. Just long enough to be wrong. There is no cause for concern. A lie. I glance at my reflection in the tram window. The city moves behind me, its light stretching and warping against the glass. My face is wrong. It takes me a moment to understand why. For the first time, I see it. Fear. A chime signals the next stop. The doors slide open. I step onto the corridor, moving toward my housing unit. The halls are empty. The hum of power grids runs beneath my feet, steady and indifferent. I reach my door. It unlocks without resistance. Inside, everything is the same, perfectly in place, perfectly still. And yet, the moment the door seals shut behind me, I know I am not alone. I do not turn immediately. I let my breathing slow. My hands remain at my sides, loose, neutral. Then carefully, I turn my head. A man stands in the farthest corner of the unit, half shrouded in shadow. Not a compliance officer, not a system enforcer, something else. He is watching me, studying. I open my mouth to speak, but before I can, he raises a hand, a warning, a signal to be silent. Then, in a voice just above a whisper, he says, "You made a mistake, and now they're coming for you." My pulse tightens. The hum of the room suddenly feels deafening, pressing in from all sides. The man stands motionless, half in shadow, his face unreadable. His presence alone is an impossibility. Unauthorized entry into housing units does not happen. It cannot happen. Yet he is here. He watches me, not with the blank, controlled stillness of a compliance officer, but with something sharper, something alive, something real. My throat is dry. I force myself to speak. Who are you? The man doesn't answer immediately. He glances at the ceiling, the walls, the corners of the room, where the compliance monitors are embedded. The air itself is listening. Then he steps forward. His movements are careful, deliberate, controlled, but not like the others, not like a citizen, more like someone pretending to be one. You don't remember me. His voice is low, quiet. That's intentional. Something twists in my gut, a cold, sinking weight. Why are you here? I keep my tone even, flat, the way I'm supposed to speak. He exhales, almost amused, almost bitter. Because you're running out of time. I say nothing. He takes another step forward. Closer now. I can see him clearly, his eyes sharp and calculating, his jaw tight with something close to urgency. But beneath it, I recognize something else. Something I do not understand. Recognition. I have seen this man before. I do not know when. I do not know where. But I know. And that terrifies me more than anything. He watches my reaction carefully, reading it. You did something you shouldn't have, he says. And the system noticed. I don't respond. I don't need to. He sees the answer on my face. His expression darkens. How far did you go? A sharp hum pulses through the walls. A security recalibration. Routine. Normal. And yet, I see the flicker of tension in his jaw. He hears it too. He takes another step forward, lowering his voice. Listen to me. They haven't taken you in yet because they're watching, studying. They want to know why you did it, how you knew. My pulse hammers against my ribs. Knew what? The man exhales, shaking his head. That's the problem. 4327. You don't know, because they took it from you. Something shatters in my chest. A silent, invisible thing splintering apart. Before I can react, before I can demand answers, before I can even process what he has just said. The lights in the unit flicker. A low vibration hums beneath my feet. The compliance boards outside the window flash red, alert. The man's expression sharpens. They're here. The hum beneath my feet intensifies. The compliance boards outside the window pulse in red, rhythmic bursts, an unmistakable sign. Intervention is imminent. My body remains still, but my mind fractures into calculation. Compliance officers never issue warnings. There is no trial, no negotiation, no second chance. They do not arrive, they appear. One moment, you are in your unit. The next, you are gone. My breath tightens. I glance at the man, the impossible man, the intruder who should not exist, the anomaly standing in my home. He doesn't hesitate. He moves. In one swift motion, he crosses the room, reaching for me. I flinch, but he grabs my wrist, his grip ironclad, his voice sharp with urgency. Listen to me. You have to leave. Now. My body remains frozen in place. I do not leave my unit. I do not deviate. This is not how things work. This is not how anything works. He shakes me, just once, enough to jolt me out of my spiraling thoughts. They will not take you to correction. 4327. They will erase you. Do you understand? Erase, not reassign, not contain. Erase. A shiver crawls up my spine. For the first time in my life, I do not feel like a functioning part of the system. I feel hunted. The lights flicker again. The door seal hisses. He doesn't wait for me to respond. He moves toward the wall, toward nothing until I hear it. A sound that should not exist. A panel unlatching. I watch, numb, as he pulls back a section of the seamless wall. Beneath it, a passage, small, cramped, hidden. There should be no hidden spaces. He turns back to me. His face is tense, his patience evaporating. You have 5 seconds to decide. I glance at the door. The pressure of the air has changed. The hum of the system has deepened. I hear movement, not outside, not distant, inside the walls. The system is already in here. 5 seconds. My legs move before my mind does. I cross the room, stepping into the passage, the cold metal biting against my palms as I brace myself against the narrow walls. The man follows. He pulls the panel shut behind us, sealing the room into silence. Darkness swallows us whole. Then, a noise, a new hum, different from the system's steady pulse. Something heavier, closer. A presence. Something has entered my unit. Something not human. The space is impossibly narrow, the walls pressing in from all sides. I can barely move. The metal is cold against my skin, and the air is thinner here, not meant to sustain life for long. The man moves first, shifting through the tunnel with practiced ease. He doesn't speak, doesn't look back. I follow. Behind us, beyond the wall, I hear something. Not movement, not footsteps. Something else. A mechanized hum, deep and resonant, vibrating through the walls like a pulse. It is not the familiar sound of the compliance officers. This is something new. Something I was never meant to hear. The passage twists downward. We are moving below the unit now, below the regulated corridors, into a space that should not exist. The system does not allow for anomalies. Yet this tunnel, this hidden artery beneath the grid, exists, which means the system is not infallible. The realization slams into me like a physical force. There are things here I was never meant to know. The air grows thicker, heavier. The hum behind us deepens. The man moves faster. I match his pace, my breath shallow, my pulse hammering in my ears. The passage twists again, narrowing before opening into a small chamber. The man pulls me through, then presses something into the metal panel behind us. A sharp, mechanical hiss. The wall seals. The hum vanishes. Silence. For a moment, neither of us move. My body is rigid, my lungs burning, my mind a riot of questions I cannot voice. The man turns to me. In the dim light, his expression is unreadable. You were never supposed to see them. My stomach tightens. I know who he means. Not the compliance officers, not the enforcers of the system, the ones who erase. My voice feels foreign when I speak. What were they? He exhales, slow and measured. Not people. The words drop into the space between us like a heavy weight. Not people. A sharp chill grips the back of my skull. I try to recall what I heard back in the unit. The absence of footsteps. The hum that seemed to vibrate through the walls. The presence. Not human. I wet my lips, my throat dry. Then what are they? The man watches me, something unreadable flickering in his gaze. Then he says softly, almost like he pities me, "The system itself." A shiver rolls through me, slow and inevitable. He sees my reaction and shakes his head. "No, 4,327. You don't understand yet." His voice lowers. "You are not in the system. You are the system." The breath catches in my throat. For a moment, I think I misheard. But I didn't. and the look in his eyes tells me something I am not ready to know, something my mind does not want to process, something I cannot unhear. He steps closer, his voice calm, steady, final. You were built to erase yourself. The words sit between us, heavy and inescapable. You were built to erase yourself. I feel the weight of them, the wrongness of them sinking into my skin, into the marrow of my bones. I shake my head before I even realize I'm doing it. That isn't possible. The man exhales, the barest hint of frustration tightening his jaw. Isn't it? The walls press in around me. The air is too thin, the silence too loud. My body, my mind, wants to reject this, wants to push it aside as an anomaly, a glitch. But I know what I did. I know what I remembered. Marin, a name that was not meant to exist. And now I know what I felt back in my unit, the thing that entered after I fled. Not a person, not a machine, something else, the system itself. I swallow hard, forcing my voice to remain even. I am a citizen, a function of the grid. I perform necessary corrections. I maintain stability. The man watches me carefully, like he's waiting for something. Then he steps closer. His voice lowers. And how many times have you done this before? Something deep inside me fractures. My vision sharpens. My breathing slows. How many times? The question digs into my mind like a splinter. I don't know. I should know. I should remember. My assignments, my records, my own efficiency reports, everything is logged. Everything is accounted for. But the moment I try to pull at the threads of my past, they dissolve into static. My chest tightens. No, this is a tactic, a psychological breach. The compliance boards warn against this. Resistance operatives spread misinformation, disrupt neural patterns, induce paranoia. This man is one of them. I close my eyes, inhaling slow. You're lying. Silence. Then a quiet chuckle. I open my eyes. He's shaking his head. Not in amusement, in pity. You think this is resistance? His voice is dry. You think I'm the one lying to you. A faint vibration runs through the walls. Not the same as before. Distant, like something is shifting, searching. He steps back. We don't have much time. I don't move. My body feels locked in place. My mind a tangled mess of static and spiraling doubt. I was built to erase myself. The words repeat in my skull, cycling, warping. I try to force them away. Try to suppress them like an errant thought the system would filter out. But I can't. Because somewhere, deep beneath the programmed responses, the conditioned neutrality, I already know it's true. The man watches me, his expression unreadable. Then finally, he exhales and mutters, "Guess we're doing this the hard way." He moves before I can react, grabbing my wrist. The contact is electric, a shock to my system. And for the briefest second, something floods through me. Not pain, not fear, memories, a face, not his, mine. But not like this, not here. Somewhere else, someone else. 100 moments, 1,000. A life I cannot remember, but have already lived. Flashes of images, sensations, things I know but do not know. The same passage, the same escape, the same impossible conversation. Again, again, again. The breath rips from my chest, and I stumble back, wrenching away from his grip. The man only nods, like he expected that. Now you're starting to get it. I stare at him, my pulse hammering. I can't move, because I understand now. This is not my first time here. This is not my first deviation. This is not my first escape, and it will not be my last. I stagger back, breath sharp, hands braced against the cold metal walls. The images still burn in my mind, fractured, fleeting, but undeniable. They are not dreams, not hallucinations. They are real, or they were. The man watches me, his gaze calculating. He doesn't move to help me, doesn't offer comfort. He lets me break. I press my palms against my temples, willing my thoughts to settle, to stabilize. But there's too much. The memories won't stay. They flicker, slipping, rotting, falling apart even as I reach for them. A cycle, a loop, a reset. The realization digs its claws into my chest. This moment, this exact moment, has happened before, more than once, more than I can comprehend. The walls vibrate again, a low pulsing thrum. The system is searching. He exhales. They'll find us soon. I force myself to look up at him. How many times? His jaw tightens. I step forward. How many times have I done this? The words feel foreign in my mouth, because some part of me, some part that isn't mine, but was once mine, already knows the answer. He watches me, unreadable. Then, after a long silence, he says, "I've stopped counting." My stomach turns. He gestures to the passage ahead. "But if you want to know the rest, keep moving." I hesitate. The walls hum again, closer. The system is coming. My body moves before my mind decides. I follow. The tunnel winds downward. The air grows thicker, the pressure against my skull heavier. I know, somehow, that we are moving outside the grid's mapped infrastructure. A place that should not exist. A place I have been before. The weight of that knowledge settles inside me, twisting into something dark. If I have done this before, if I have deviated before, then what happened? Where does this path lead? My mind cycles through the possibilities. Each one ends the same way. I do not remember, because the system took it from me, because I was built to forget. The corridor opens into a larger space. It is dark, but the man moves confidently, navigating through rusted beams and remnants of structures long abandoned. He stops near a terminal, not like the ones in the grid, older, cruder, a machine from another time. Something inside me recoils. He places a hand on the interface. It flickers to life. A screen fills with text, lines of data, fragments of records. And then, my name. Not 4,327, not a designation, a real name. A name I once chose. Noah. My breath stops. I do not recognize it. And yet, I do. Because I have done this before. Because I have been here before. Because I have made this choice before. And no matter what happens next, I will be here again. The name stares back at me from the screen. Noah. It does not belong to me. It does. It is a glitch, an intrusion, a fabrication. It is mine. The screen flickers, a ripple in the data feed, a memory. No, a shadow of one. Flickers at the edge of my mind, a voice, a choice, a name I once said aloud. My name. I step back from the terminal, pulse hammering. I feel wrong, too heavy, too unstable, like something inside me is coming apart. The man, Ren. The name surfaces suddenly, pulled from the static, watches me carefully. He doesn't speak. He lets me process. I clench my hands into fists. How is this here? The system does not allow unrecorded data. The system does not allow me. He exhales, leaning against the rusted beam beside him. Because you put it here. The words settle in my skull like a toxin. I shake my head. No. His lips twitch, not a smile, a grim understanding. Yes. The air presses in, suddenly too thick, too charged. The hum of the grid is distant, but I feel it, like a phantom limb, watching, waiting. I force the words out. I don't remember doing this. His gaze sharpens. Of course you don't. A pause, a hesitation, then a slow nod, like he has reached a decision. He pushes off the beam, stepping closer. You want to know the truth? I do. I don't. My body says yes. My mind screams no. He gestures toward the terminal, then access the file. I don't move, because I know. I don't know how I know, but I do. The moment I press that key, the moment I confirm the file, it will be real. And once it is real, there is no going back. The walls vibrate. The system is still searching. Time is running out. I inhale sharply, step forward, and I press the key. The file expands. Not a report, not a simple record, a video. It begins to play. And then I see myself, not as I am now, not as Citizen 4327, but as Noah, sitting in this very room, looking into the camera and speaking in a voice I do not remember. If you're watching this, it means I failed. The words rip through me like a blade. If you're watching this, it means I failed. My own voice, mine, but not this version of me, a past self, a past attempt. I stare at the screen, at the flickering, degraded image of myself, Noah, sitting in this same place, his face taut with exhaustion, his eyes sharp, haunted. I do not remember recording this, but I know it is real. On screen, Noah exhales, runs a hand through his hair, looks straight at me. You don't have much time. If you found this, they're already looking for you. That means you deviated again. Deviated again. The room presses in, the weight of it suffocating. Ren says nothing beside me. He lets it play. I know what you're feeling, the confusion, the paranoia, that itch in the back of your skull that says something is wrong, but you don't know what. Noah's voice hardens. That's because you weren't meant to know. The screen flickers, a glitch, a corruption in the data. My past self's image fractures, then stabilizes. You are not escaping the system, Noah. You are part of it. My breath stops. Every time you run, every time you resist, every time you try to break free, they reset you, but not completely. I grip the edge of the terminal. The room tilts. They leave just enough doubt, just enough memory, just enough to make you think this time will be different. Number. No. The screen glitches again. Noah. I speak through static. But it's not. It never is. The file skips. The words warp. You are the system. You are the experiment. You are the cycle. A sharp pulse slams into my skull. My vision flickers. Just for a second, the walls around me seem to pulse, breathe. I stagger back, my pulse a hammering roar in my ears. The system is inside me. The system is me. On the screen, my past self exhales. I watch myself lean forward, expression dark, final. If you want to break the cycle, you have to do something different. The file skips again. My voice, his voice, distorts. You have to... The screen flashes red. Corrupted data. File terminated. The feed cuts out. Silence. I stand there, frozen. My body still trying to process, unravel, reject. Ren exhales. Now you understand. I shake my head, backing away. Number no, I don't. I feel sick. My hands tremble. My chest feels hollow. If this has happened before, if I have been here before, then that means I whip toward him. What happens next? He doesn't answer immediately, because he doesn't have to. The walls vibrate. The hum grows louder. We both know. The system has found me. The vibration builds, deep and resonant, pulsing through the walls, the floor, the air itself. The system is no longer searching. It knows where I am. I know what happens next. I've seen it, felt it, lived it, and still, I don't remember. Ren moves first. He slams something against the terminal. A data spike, a disruptor, something crude and stolen. And the screen fractures into static. Too late. A sharp, mechanical hiss echoes through the chamber. The entrance behind us unseals. I barely turn in time to see the wall fold open, metal peeling back in seamless precision. No doors, no seams, no evidence that an opening existed at all. A trick of architecture, a hidden mechanism, a system adjusting itself. And beyond it, not people. I freeze. They are not compliance officers, not enforcers, not human. Figures of impossible symmetry, their bodies sleek, featureless, sculpted like something meant to mimic a person, but failing. Their heads are smooth, without eyes, without mouths. Their skin, if it is skin, shifts and flickers, like static woven into something physical. They do not move like people. They do not breathe. But I hear them. I feel them. The hum of the grid is inside them. They are not separate from it. They are the system itself. A sharp pulse spikes through my skull. My vision fractures. Ren grabs my arm, yanking me backward. Move! I stumble. My body reacts before my mind does. The figures shift forward. Not walking, not stepping. They simply adjust. 1 second, they are at the threshold. The next, they are inside. The space between us collapses in an instant. A hand, if it can be called that, lashes out toward me. A limb that should be solid but flickers at the edges. I don't think. I drop low, twisting out of reach. The moment it misses, it corrects. I feel it. A force in the air, a pull, a recalibration. The system does not fail. It reconfigures. Ren pulls something from his belt. A compact device. Something old. Something from before. He slams it into the ground. A burst of disruptive static tears through the chamber. The figures glitch. Their forms shudder, distort. Not permanently, but long enough. Run. We move. Another tunnel. Not mapped, not recorded. Ren moves first. I follow, my pulse a hammering pulse of too fast, too loud, too human. Behind us, the static fades. And then, the hum returns. The system is adjusting, and it will not let me escape. Not again. The tunnel is too narrow, too alive with the hum of the system reconfiguring itself. Ren moves ahead of me, fast, precise, like someone who has done this before. Because he has. Because I have. I am running through a memory I do not remember. The air behind us shifts. Not a sound, not a movement, but a correction. The system does not chase. It adjusts. I feel it recalibrating, rewriting, preparing for the next inevitable event. My capture. Not an if, a when. The passage narrows, then abruptly drops. Ren barely slows before he pushes off the ledge, dropping down into the dark. I hesitate. A mistake. The hum behind me intensifies. I glance back. They are there. The figures do not crawl, do not climb, do not move like anything natural. They simply shift forward, the space between us collapsing in seamless liquid motion. I feel them before I see them. The air warps around them, reality itself thinning as they draw closer. I jump. The drop is sharp, my stomach lurching. And then, impact. I land harder than I should, rolling onto cold metal. I bite back the pain. No time. Ren grabs my arm, yanks me up. We keep running. The walls are rusted here, old and wrong. Not part of the grid, not built by it. We're in something else now, something beneath it, something older. A sudden turn, a door, a real door, metal and ancient. Ren reaches for it, and then a pulse, deep, final. I scream. My head fractures, pain splitting through my skull like a strike of static through a failing transmission. Not a sound, not a force, a command, a wordless, voiceless signal in the fabric of my mind, a function activating. I collapse. The floor tilts, the world spins, my vision glitches, and then I see it. The code, not just in the system, inside me. I was built to erase myself. The pulse ripples again, and I feel it. The compliance protocols reactivating, the override pushing back against my deviation, the sequence preparing to correct, to reset. I choke on my own breath. No. I will not disappear again. I will not forget again. I force my body up, shaking, trembling, my thoughts trying to fold into compliance, into silence. Ren is saying something, shouting. I barely hear him. The figures are closing in. I stagger forward, grab the edge of the door. Ren pulls. We fall through. The door slams shut. The hum of the system. The signal in my head, the pulse of the correction process, cuts out instantly, like stepping outside of a signal field, like being disconnected. I collapse against the cold metal, gasping, my body shaking violently. The silence is deafening. And then, from the other side of the door, a whisper, not sound, not voice, data, an intrusion trying to get in. The system is still there, waiting, rewriting, preparing for the next time, because there will be a next time. Ren kneels beside me, watching, waiting for me to process it. I lift my head. What is this place? He exhales. And then for the first time, he says it plainly. The only place they can't reach. I stare at him. He watches me, expression tight, careful. Then finally he speaks. Welcome to the first version of the world. I sit in the silence, my breath still unsteady, the echoes of that pulse still lodged in my skull like a phantom limb. The only place they can't reach. The first version of the world. I lift my head. The chamber is dark, the air thicker, not regulated by the precise environmental controls of the grid. The metal beams are old, rusted, not part of the seamless, flawless infrastructure I know. The grid is perfect. It is polished. It is meant to last forever. But this place is real. I turn to Ren. My mind is fracturing with questions, but one rises above the rest. What do you mean, the first version? His gaze flickers. He expected that question. Slowly he stands, moving toward the terminal at the center of the room. It is nothing like the sleek, omnipresent interfaces of the system. The screen is warped, its display old, the edges of the machine worn with time. Ren types something into the console. The screen glitches, then stabilizes, and then words appear. Primary system designation, the grid, model, human stability simulation, version 07, date of installation, corrupted data, cycle count 4,327. I stop breathing. 4,327. My designation. The screen flickers. More text appears. Current objective. Monitor deviation rate. Reconfigure instability. Erase recursive data. Reset system. My stomach twists violently. I am not an anomaly. I am a function of the system itself. I stagger back from the screen, my body cold. The memories, the video, the things I've seen, the things I've felt lurking beneath the surface of my mind. They all slam into me at once. Ren doesn't stop me. He watches as I unravel. You weren't meant to find this. His voice is quieter now, less urgent. You were meant to cycle back through, to start over. I shake my head. Number no, that... I choke on the words. That doesn't make sense. But it does. The resets, the gaps in my memory, the feeling that I have done this before, because I have. 4,327 cycles, and this is just one of them. I grab the edge of the console, my fingers digging into the rusted metal. What is the grid? What is this place? Ren exhales. He taps something on the console. The screen shifts, showing something else now. A map, but not a map of a city. A map of the world, or what's left of it. My pulse stutters. The land masses, they are wrong. The oceans, they are wrong. The world as I know it, it is not here. Or rather, it is smaller, shrunken, contained. And then the worst part. The outer edges of the map flicker. Not terrain, not land or sea, just a boundary, a wall. I stagger backward. That's not possible. Ren looks at me, his expression unreadable. It is. It always has been. The truth crashes over me in slow, suffocating waves. The grid is not a city. The grid is the world. There is nothing beyond it. Nothing but the system itself. I think I might be suffocating. My lungs feel too small. The air feels thicker, heavier, too real. My entire life, every rule, every function, every lie, a simulation, a controlled cycle, a prison. I look back at Ren, and I see something in his eyes I didn't before. He isn't free either. None of us are. And then, before I can say anything, before I can process the full weight of what I've just seen, the walls shake, the hum of the system returns. But this time, it's inside my head, and it is calling me home. The hum burrows into my skull like a thread of static unraveling behind my eyes. I clutch my head, but it does nothing. The vibration is inside me, woven into my thoughts, into the marrow of my mind. The system isn't reaching for me, it's activating me. I stumble back, my breath sharp, my pulse hammering, but my body is not my own anymore. My limbs stiffen, my vision flickers, the world tilting, shifting. My thoughts, My own thoughts start to scramble. Reset pending. Cycle error detected. Reconfiguring user data. Number. No. I know what happens next. This is when I disappear. When I stop being Noah. When I stop being anything. Ren grips my arms, shaking me. Stay with me. I try to speak, but my throat locks. The system is closing around me. I feel its weight, its will. It is inside me because it is me. I was built to erase myself. Ren's voice cuts through the static. Listen to me. If you let it take you, you'll wake up as someone else. Back in the cycle, back where you started. I choke in a breath. The memories, the hard ones I have, the ones I lost, the ones that are being overwritten right now. They splinter, fraying like old wires. I am forgetting. Cycle 4327, restoring default parameters. I shake my head violently. I claw at the console, trying to hold on to something, anything. Tell me how to stop it. Ren hesitates. A second too long. A second that tells me what I already know. There is no stopping it. My chest caves. My fingers dig into the rusted console, knuckles white. My name. Noah. The name I chose, the name that was once mine, is already slipping away. The hum grows louder. The system is pulling me back. I think I hear my own voice, whispering from somewhere I cannot reach. Not this version of me. Another one. A past one. A future one. I see flashes, images I cannot hold on to, moments I have lived, will live, am already living again. This has happened before. It will happen again, unless I do something different. I look up at Ren. He sees it in my face, the realization. His grip on my arms tightens. His expression is tight, unreadable. What are you thinking? I swallow hard. I know what the system is. I know what I am. And now, I know how to break it. I meet his gaze. I need you to kill me. His breath catches. For the first time, he falters. Noah. Do it. I can't let them reset me. I can't let them wipe this away again. If I die here, if I die outside of their parameters, outside of the cycle, they won't be able to restore me. I will be gone. For real, for good, free. Ren hesitates. The hum rises. The reset is almost complete. I feel my mind slipping, my body locking. The system is almost finished with me. I grip Ren's arms, shaking him this time. If you don't do it, I wake up back where I started. You know that. You know that. His jaw clenches. He knows. He has always known. Because this is not the first time he's had to do this. I see it in his face. The grief, the recognition, the resignation. I have asked him this before, and he has done it before, again and again. And I will ask him again, unless this time is different, unless this time it works. I squeeze my eyes shut. My last breath shudders. I do not feel fear. I feel relief. A sharp crack echoes through the chamber, and then everything goes dark. Silence, total, absolute. A void where thought should be, where I should be. I am gone. I feel nothing, no sound, no system, no self. For a moment, a perfect, terrifying moment, I think it worked, that I am truly free, that this time was different, that I finally escaped the cycle. And then, a breath. Mine. The first sharp inhale of consciousness, reawakening. I feel the weight of my body, the pressure of gravity, the hum, distant but still there. Number, no, no, no. This isn't happening. I was supposed to be gone. I blink, light filters in, shapes forming, sharpening. A screen glows before me, a workstation, a terminal, identical to the one I knew before. The walls are smooth, uniform. The air precisely calibrated for efficiency. The sound of the grid hums steady and soft, ever present, a whisper beneath my thoughts. I know this place. I know this moment, because I've lived it before, because I have never left. A chime sounds in my skull. Echo 9. Welcome to your shift, Citizen 4328. My breath locks. 4,328. Not 4,327. Not Noah. A new designation. A new iteration. A new cycle. I want to scream. I want to tear at my skin, at my skull, at the system that holds me, reprograms me, binds me in this endless loop. But I do not move, because I do not remember. Not yet, not fully. The fragments of something hover just at the edges of my mind, a whisper in the static. A voice I cannot place. My own voice. And then, a message blinks on the screen. Not a system prompt, not an official directive. Something else. A question. A familiar question. Do you remember her? My hands tremble. Because I don't. But I will. Because the cycle is beginning again. And this time, maybe this time, I break it. The message stares back at me from the terminal, pulsing softly. Do you remember her? I don't move. I don't breathe. Something inside me shifts, like a shadow curling in the back of my mind. A memory that isn't a memory. A feeling, a hole where something should be. I hover over the terminal, my fingers unsteady. I should flag this as an anomaly, report the deviation. That is what I'm supposed to do. And yet, I don't. The hum of the system is soft in my skull, steady, regulating my thoughts, guiding them. But there is something else now too, a presence beneath it, the absence of something I should know. A chime sounds in my head. Echo 9. Citizen 4328. Efficiency report pending. Please proceed with today's assignments. I blink. The message is gone. As if it were never there. As if I imagined it. But I know I didn't. I stare at the screen. My pulse is too fast. A deviation. A glitch. Something not meant to exist. And yet, it does. A flicker of hesitation settles in my chest. A pull towards something I cannot name. For a moment, I do not know why. And then, without thinking, without knowing why I do it, I delay my next assignment. Not a full rejection, just a pause, a hesitation, a deviation small enough to go unnoticed. The system does not react. The world does not change. But deep in my skull, in the space where thoughts should be orderly and clean, a whisper lingers, faint, familiar. You have done this before. I exhale slow. I lower my hands. And for the first time in this life, this version of me, I begin to wake up. End. System report. Project. Citizen. Cycle. 4,328. Status. Reset pending. The sterile hum of the lab is as constant as ever. The engineers sit at their stations, their faces indifferent to the task at hand. The data flows across their screens uninterrupted, perfect in its consistency. The system operates without pause, never questioning, never hesitating. There is no need for hesitation in perfection. What's the deviation this time? The lead engineer's voice, cold and dispassionate, breaks the silence, though he doesn't lift his eyes from the screen. Noah, iteration 4328. Minor deviation detected. Subtle, but significant. The technician responds without glancing up, fingers moving effortlessly over the console, recalibrating the system's feedback. What kind of deviation? The engineer's voice remains composed, as if these anomalies were commonplace, because they are. He's trying to break free again, the same behavior, but this time with more awareness. He's starting to recognize the patterns, learning again. The engineer doesn't seem concerned. He's learning. That's what we want. Yes, the technician agrees, but we know how this ends. Her fingers move with precision, the data streams adjusting. It always ends the same. The feed on the screen shows Noah walking through his day. His movements are robotic, deliberate, his every step a part of the perfect system's design. He doesn't know that this world is artificial. He doesn't know that he is artificial. Everything about him, the thoughts he believes are his, the feelings he thinks he feels, are pre-programmed, maintained by the system's constant watch. His life is a simulation. He's a product, designed for one purpose: perfection. Citizen 4327 walks by, a perfect bug-free version of Noah. The same features, the same posture, the same mechanical efficiency. But Noah doesn't recognize him. And Citizen 4327 doesn't recognize Noah, because the system ensures that no version of Noah can ever truly recognize another. Each iteration is a corrected version of him, different enough that they never truly see themselves in each other. They are all refined, optimized. They are just pieces of data, endlessly adjusted and reset. He's getting closer, the technician observes, her voice betraying a note of something, perhaps curiosity, perhaps just the understanding that this is how it always goes. The awareness is there, the glitch is almost full. It's to be expected, the engineer responds. Every deviation is part of the process. Every failure brings us closer to perfection. Noah passes by again, his eyes focused, his thoughts unaware. Ren, the willing rebellion entity, appears before him. Ren looks like a guide. He speaks with conviction, offering the illusion of freedom. "You don't have to stay here," Ren whispers, the words crafted to plant the seed of doubt. "You can escape. You can break the cycle." But Ren is no rebel. Ren is another iteration, another test subject, a controlled variable designed to guide Noah towards rebellion and failure. The illusion is perfect. It always is. And so, the system watches as Noah tries again, and again, and again. His desire to escape is nothing but a program flaw, designed to test how far he can go before he's reset. The system knows how this will play out, because it always plays out the same way. Noah stands at the edge of the system's barrier, staring at the flickering exit sign in the distance. For the briefest moment, he feels something, the pull of recognition, the sense that he's been here before, done this before, felt this before. But it doesn't matter, because the system knows better. The reset protocol triggers with cold precision. The feed goes black,